Okay, so here we are with a new chapter in literature for today. The name of the chapter is A Day's Wait. Now, many a times you all must have noticed that when you're not feeling well, when you're not uh, having any strength in your body, you must have come across a situation where you need attention of your family members. Maybe you are sick and you're sitting in a corner, lonely and very sad, and you want people around you to be looking after you. So, here's a story about this boy who fell ill and he felt as if he was going to die. And why did he feel the way he felt? We'll come to know in this story. It's a lovely, sweet little story. Let's begin. He came into the room to shut the windows while we were still in bed, and I saw he looked ill. He was shivering, his face was white, and he walked slowly as though it ached to move. So now here the narrator is giving you a description that this small little boy, he came near the bed. He tried to shut the window of the room, and his face was looking very pale and sick. He was moving slowly, and he was shivering. "What's the matter, Shats?" Now the narrator asked him, and the name of the little boy is Shats. So he says, "What's the matter?" So the boy replied, "I've got a headache." "You better go to bed." "No, I'm all right." "You go to bed. I'll see you when I'm dressed." So now the narrator gave the instructions: if you're not feeling well, if you're sick, please go to bed and settle there and let me get dressed and I'll come to see you. But when I came back downstairs, he was dressed, sitting by the fire, looking a very sick and miserable boy of 9 years. So, but when the narrator finally came down, he found that the boy was sitting all dressed up and he was sitting next to a fire and was looking more sick and miserable. And please underline the age of this little boy, 9 years. When I put my hand on his forehead, I knew he had a fever. So we all know that he had fever when the narrator touched his forehead. "You go to bed," I said. "You are sick." "I'm all right," he said. When the doctor came, he took the boy's temperature. "What is it?" I asked him. 102. Now, this conversation is good enough to understand. The doctor was called, the doctor came, he took the temperature, and it was 102. Downstairs, the doctor left three different medicines in different colored capsules with instructions for giving them. Underline three different medicines. So that means the prescription which the doctor gave mentioned three different medicines, and they were different colored capsules. So one was to bring down the fever, underline one, underline fever. Another, a purgative, underline another, underline purgative. It was a purgative means a medicine which could clean up the system and strengthen it. Okay. Now the third was to overcome an acidic condition. Underline third, underline over, overcome an acidic condition. That means an antibiotic it must be. When you have fever, you are given a medicine to put down the fever and at the same time to stop the infection, and an antibiotic to uh, stop the infection, and an supportive vitamins, multivitamins, so that you gain strength. So in the same way, he was given these three medicines. One was for putting down the fever, bringing down the fever. Another was to cleanse the system, and the third was to overcome an acidic condition. Okay, the germs of influenza can only exist in an acidic condition. So what we had actually influenza, cough and cold with sickness. Okay, he explains. The doctor has explained that acidic condition helps in growing of this influenza germs. Okay, so he wanted the acidic condition to be removed by, so he gave the third medicine. He seemed to know all about influenza and said there was nothing to worry about if the fever did not go above 104 degrees. This was a light epidemic of flu and there was no danger if you avoided pneumonia. So the doctor was quite aware of the disease in detail, and he told the narrator that there's nothing to worry unless and until the fever reaches 104 degrees. It's only then it is alarming, and then since it's there in the epidemic, it's quite common with this change in season, the flu and all this happens. But please make sure that he shouldn't have pneumonia. Pneumonia is a severe condition of it. Okay, please switch off your mic. Tells Dr. Dan. Back in the room, I wrote the boy's temperature down and made a note of the time to give the various capsules. So now, when the doctor had left, the narrator, he came back to the room and he wrote everything, the temperature and the various capsules and their details. Do you want me to read to you? So now the narrator asked the little boy Shats that if he wants if he wants the narrator to read him some book or story or something. All right, if you want to, said the boy. Now, with a very disheartened and in a very sad way, the boy said, "Okay, agar if you want, you can." His face was very white, and there were dark areas under his eyes. He lay still in the bed and seemed very detached from what was going on. So now he was sick. The boy was sick, and he lay in the bed and he was uh, behaving as if he was not wanting anything. He was detached from all the things around him. I read aloud from the Howard Files, the book of pirates. Now, this is the name of a book. Now, the book of pirates is one of the children's storybook written by Howard Pyle. Okay, an American artist and author. Okay, but I was not following what I was reading. But the narrator felt that, in spite of the fact that he was reading his one of the favorite books, he was not paying attention at all. How do you feel, Shats? I asked him. Just the same so far, he said. So he was not feeling better, and when the narrator asked him, he said he's just feeling just the same as it was earlier. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I did not change the page. I sat at the foot of the bed and read to myself while I waited for it to be time to give another capsule. It would have been natural for him to go to sleep, but when I looked up, he was looking at the foot of the bed, looking very strangely. So now the narrator, he was reading the storybook for him, and he assumed that gradually he'll go to sleep. But when he looked up to see him, he found that Shats was still awake and he was just looking at the tip of the bed where his legs were. And he was looking very strangely, that means motionlessly, feelinglessly, he was gazing. Why don't you try to go to sleep? I'll wake you up for the medicine. So now he said, you go to bed. I'll wake you up when it's time for the medicine. And actually, he was reading the book so that the uh, time should come and he should give the capsules. So, but I'd rather stay awake. Now the boy answered, no, I would like to stay awake. After a while, he said to me, you don't have to stay in here with me, Papa, if it bothers you. It doesn't bother me. No, I mean, you don't have to stay if it's going to bother you. So now he's saying to his dad, now we know now at this time that that narrator was his dad, Shad's father. So he said, "Hey, father, if you wish to go, you can go. You don't get bothered because of me, because I will just keep awake." So the father replied, the narrator said, "No, it is not bothering me." So he again corrected, if it is bothering you, can go. It's not a problem. I thought perhaps he was a little high-headed, and after giving him the prescribed capsule at 11 o'clock, I went out for a while. So now the father thought, "Okay, maybe I should give him some space because he's strong-headed and plus he's sick, so he is getting irritated." So after giving the prescribed capsules at 11 o'clock, please underline the time, the father decided that he would go for a while. It was a bright, cold day, the ground covered with a sleet that had frozen so that it seemed as if all the bare trees, the bushes, the cut brush, and all the grass and the bare ground had been varnished with ice. So now he came out, and it was a bright and cold day, and there was a thin sheet of ice all around. Now, with the first layer of ice being there, everything, every bush, every tree seemed, and the ground seemed to be very slippery, and it appeared as if everything had vanished, and it was only the ice which was there. I took the young Irish setter for a little walk up the road and along a frozen creek. Now, this Irish setter is the name of a dog, it's a breed. Okay, so he took that dog and he went to the roads and on the frozen creek, that means on the frozen road covered with ice, and he went out there. But it was difficult to stand or walk on the glassy surface of the, and the red dog slipped and slithered as and I fell twice hard, once dropping my gun and having it slide over the ice. So now, as they were walking over the ground, they could feel the slipperiness of the ground. Now, the ground was slippery because of the glassy texture of the thin sheet of ice. The dog, which was a red dog, it slipped and slithered. Slithered means lithad jana, to slide along when you slip. Okay, and even the father, he had also fell down twice. Batao bhai, and he even dropped his gun, which went sliding over the ice. We flushed a covey of quail under a high clay bank with overhanging brush, and I killed two as they went out of sight over the top of the bank. Now, once they reached a riverside or a water body, whatever it was, they saw that there was a small group of birds there, and he tried to shoot them. And through his gunshots, he was able to kill two birds next to the bank. Some of the covey let in trees, but most of them scattered into brush piles, and it was necessary to jump on the ice-coated moles of brush several times before they would flush. So now, when he had shot the gun, some of them had moved on to the branches of other trees, whereas some had hid behind the bushes, and he had to really jump on them, or just you can say glide, not exactly glide, but he had to, जिसे कहना कूद पड़ना होता है, he had to jump and get hold of the coveys, the bird. Coming out while you were poised unsteadily on the icy, springy brush, they made difficult shooting, and I killed two, missed five, and started back, pleased to have found a covey so close to the house, and happy there was so many left to find on another day. So now, after five gunshots, he could only get hit two birds, and he was still happy because it was really unstable to stand on that icy ground, which was always slippery, and also the springy bush, which was so slippery, and to catch hold of the birds was very difficult, in spite of the birds being very close to him. He could hardly, and he was quite happy that okay, finally he got two, because he knew that another day when he'll come back, there are still more, and he could shoot them. At the house, they said the boy had refused to let anyone into the room. Now, when he returned back home, he came to know that the little boy Shats, had not allowed anyone to enter his room. "You can't come in," he said. You mustn't get what I have." Now, the boy was telling everyone not to come inside because you should not catch the same disease which he was having. So for that reason, he wanted everyone to stay outside his room. I went up to him and found him in exact same position I had left him in, white-faced, but with the tops of his cheeks flushed by the fever, staring still as he had stared at the foot of the bed. So now when he entered, he found him exactly in the same position, exactly in the same way, white-faced, only the cheeks had turned a little more redder. They were more red, and he was still staring at the foot of the bed. I took his temperature. So the father took the temperature. So the boy asked in curiosity, what is it? Something like 100, I said. It was 102 and 4 tenths. That means 102.4 it was. Okay. 4 tenths is, that means after the decimal point, you say 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths. Okay. So it was 102.4. Okay. But he told that it is somewhere near 100. It was 102, he said. Who said so? The doctor. Your temperature is all right, I said. It's nothing to worry about. I don't worry, he said, but I can't keep from thinking. So now the boy said he wanted to know the temperature and he wanted to know what the doctor had said. He said, did the doctor say 102? After that, you have to worry? So he said, no, 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 don't worry. There's nothing to worry about. Why? Because the doctor had said, till 104, it's okay. Okay. They said, no, you don't have to worry. So I don't worry. I don't worry, he said. But I can't keep from thinking. Don't think, I said. Just take it easy. I'm taking it easy, he said, and looked straight ahead. He was evidently holding tight on to himself about something. Take this with water. Do you think it will do any good? Of course it will. I sat down and opened the pirate book and commenced to read, but I could see he was not following, so I stopped. About what time do you think I'm going to die? He asked. What? About how long will it be before I die? You aren't going to die. What's the matter with you? Oh, yes, I am. I heard him say 102. People don't die with a fever of 102. That's a silly way to talk. So now this conversation tells uh, that the boy was still now quiet because he thought that he was going to die. So finally, his curiosity made him ask his father, "Hey, father, till what time do you think I will die?" So the father said, "Why? Who says so that you die in 102?" So he said, "No, I think it is. I have heard it." So the doctor said. So he said, "No, that's a silly way to talk." So then they say, I know they do. At school in France, the boys told me you can't live with 44 degrees. I've got 102. So now he tells the reason. He says, when he was in school in France, underline this, school in France, he had heard the children say that at 44 degrees, one dies. And he's saying that, and I've got 102. So he had been waiting to die all now. He's been waiting the whole day when he died. So now he says, ever since 9 o'clock in the morning, you've been waiting when you will die. You poor shats, I said. Poor old shats. It's like miles and kilometers. So now the father says, no, child, you are such a fool. You're such a poor boy. It's the change in its you know, sister, now 1 kilometer looks one okay, but if the Fahrenheit temperature, okay, the unit of measurement of okay, so he came to know the difference. So it's like miles and kilometers. You aren't going to die. That's a different thermometer. On that thermometer, 37 is normal. On this kind, it's 98. So now he's saying that in Fahrenheit 37 is considered normal, whereas in Celsius it is 98. Are you sure? Absolutely, I said. It's like miles and kilometers we make when we do 70 in the car. So now he's telling about the speedometer also. He tells when you're taking up the speed, it is the miles that you cover, whereas the speedometer still shows in kilometers. So it is the difference. These are the units difference. Oh, he said, but his gaze at the foot of the bed relaxed slowly. So now he was looking, the way he was looking at the foot of his bed, now he was more relaxed once he came to know the answer. The hold over himself relaxed too, finally, and the next day it was very slack, and he cried very easily at little things that were of no importance. So now gradually he was becoming okay, and he was getting relaxed. He was crying like a baby as he was earlier, and he was more relaxed and was accepting that he was sick and he would be fine soon. So this is a lovely story. I request each one of you to write the details in the index, write today's date there, and then on the new page, write the chapter's name, A Day's Wait, and the writer Ernest Hemingway. And please make sure that you do the word meaning. Next in the next class, I hope everything's clear to you till here.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for responding. I wait for your response quite often, and it's nice to know that you respond. It always encourages me as a teacher. You all can leave now.
Thank you, ma'am.
Pleasure, pleasure,
Thank
each
you,
one of
ma'am.
you. Thank you, thank you,
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
thank you, child. Thank you. Leave quickly. Has the recording stopped? No, it has not. Quickly leave.